Change, Redeeming the Time Brothers podcast by Gene Kissinger and Norman Kissinger, two brothers who spent their lives in ministry and raising large families. Our desire is to provide a digital place for those who long to belong. And as always, we want to leave a nightlight on for you. That nightlight is out of Colossians chapter 4 and verse 10. The Apostle Paul writing, Aristarchus, my fellow prisoner, saluteth you, and Marcus, sister, son to Barnabas, touching whom ye received commandments. If he come unto you, receive him. Now, this is remarkable because John Mark had once abandoned the Apostle Paul on one of his missionary journeys. John Mark just sort of jumped ship and went home, and presumably homesick, perhaps frustrated, frightened, because ministry in those places was no picnic. In fact, the Apostle Paul was stoned at one city. There certainly riots took place sometimes where he was at, so it certainly wasn't the safest of places to be with the Apostle Paul. But John Mark he failed, and it was a spectacular failure. And it really, I think it wounded Paul, and Paul for a time, I think, probably had wrote him off a little bit. But later on, John Mark gets his way back into Paul's good affections, apparently established a pattern of behavior that was a consistent pattern of behavior, a pattern of faithfulness rather than failure. And he grew in his walk with God, and he changed. See, change is what we strive for in our own personal lives. We want people to be patient with us until we change and stop falling down. Remember when you learned how to do something new like skiing or skating or riding a bike? It consisted of you falling and falling and falling until you started falling less and started falling less until ultimately you could fairly easily navigate skating or skiing or bicycling without falling because you had experience at it. And sometimes the temptation is for us as believers is to assume that if somebody disappoints us, we're just going to write them off. We won't let them have another chance. They failed. They had their chance. You don't want people to do that to you. We need to be careful not to do that to others. Let's learn to be patient with others as they grow, like we want them to be patient with us as we grow. Dear Lord God, I thank you that you're a God of grace and a God who allows us, Father, to rise up 7 times when we've fallen 6. Help us, God, to be your people for this place and time. In Jesus' name, amen.